Can I have your attention, please? We'll be starting up shortly. Good evening and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board for Monday, May 19th, 2025. The first matter on the agenda is the approval of some prior minutes. The first one I'll go to will be the May 5th ones, which was our last and most recent meeting. Anybody have any questions or comments on those? That was a quick meeting where we had only a continuance on the agenda. Anybody have any questions about those? If not, I'll make a motion to approve the May 5th minutes.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Next set of minutes would be the April 24th, 2025. Anybody have any comments on the April minutes?
Mr. Chairman, we had asked to get a revised minutes with some suggestions that members had sent DPD. We have not received them, but I mean, I know what they were. If it would not be, if members don't object, I would no problem making a motion approving it with and I would provide the wording so that we would approve it with that wording, and then we would see the minutes approved. So I would make a motion to approve minutes with the following amendments. Under the discussion portion of site plan review and special permit for 23 West 5th Street, that the language be added that says, after a discussion with the applicant requested to withdraw the petition without prejudice. And then under this discussion portion of the agenda, where I did discuss just a little bit about properties in the flood hazard areas, the following wording is to be noted that residents with properties located in a special flood hazard area cannot close on a mortgage to a federally insured lending institution unless they have flood insurance. So just want to make that amendment to the minutes and see that reflected in these minutes, and then we would get the amended.
Seconded.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Any opposition? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. So, moving along on the agenda, tonight we have several tree hearings. We have a public shade tree hearings for 42 Magnolia Street, 486 Andover Street, 14, 15, 21, and 54 Beresford Ave, 320 Varnum Ave, 51 Wedge Street, and 406 Parker Street. So what I like to do is take them one at a time. So we'll hear from the applicant, and then we'll hear from the public, and then we'll vote on them one at a time instead of hearing all at the same time. So we'll start off, if I can, in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 87.5 and Chapter 260 of the Lowell Code of Ordinance, the Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons about the proposed removal of one tree located at 42 Magnolia Street, one tree located at 486 Andover Street, one tree at each of the above addresses on Beresford Ave, 3 trees and 320 Varnum Ave, and one tree located at 51 Wedge Street, and one tree at 406 Parker Street. The removal of these trees is necessary to maintain the integrity of the public sidewalk and roadway. So if I can, I'd like to start with the ones for Beresford Ave. Those seem to be the ones that have the most. So if we can hear for the applicant of Beresford Ave.
Good evening. I appreciate the fact that you're willing to have this continuance to let us come back. I know there were some concerns about where the replanting would occur for these, so I have Dan Lewis, an engineer here for the city, who can explain what that plan is at this point. We've submitted that paperwork as well.
Did everybody get a copy of the plans my coworker Moise made? He was a gentleman who was here during the last meeting.
Yes, we have the address on Beresford. We have 1 Maple at 486, 1 Oak at 47, oh, I'm sorry, the 46th Andover Street, my mistake. one at 14 Beresford, 15 Beresford, 21 Beresford, and 54 Beresford. And I think late this afternoon, we received a replanting plan.
Yes, the
Yes,
site plan, you see?
yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I got an extra copy. You want one?
I printed one, but I don't know if
I only brought one extra copy.
let me just see if I threw mine in. I made them, I did them in color too, but yeah, so we got
You're gonna need
planting.
So this is
Move it up on my
black
computer.
and white and back and forth.
So that got mine. Don't tell me I did. Unless they're still in my printer.
I mean, I highlighted where the trees are.
Yeah, I mean, I looked it over pretty good, but.
Oh, he's getting copies.
Okay, yeah, so we'll do Beresford first, then we'll do the Andover Street, and then we'll move to the rest, so. So we're waiting for that. I'll just read the notice that we received for the trees at Beresford and Andover Street. The overgrown root system damaging the existing sidewalk creates a significant tripping hazard in addition to an already non-ADA Americans with Disability Act compliant sidewalks. The removal of these trees is necessary in order to perform the task involved in the reconstruction project, including granite curb installation and ADA compliant sidewalk construction. Please see photos, and we had the photos from the last meeting. You can tell that was a little while ago because we got snow on the ground in these pictures. Don't even have any of that up north anymore. This was the Andover one, yeah, okay. So on the replanting plan, it shows where the existing tree is, the new tree to be, and utility lines.
Couldn't see the these things. I mean, I don't care if you put an X and then make a tree. Show where it is. I just couldn't see it.
Yeah. Jeremy did a good job. Oh, it has water position, telephone pole, existing gas, proposed location, existing trees.
And these proposed locations are using the best available information we had, utility-wise. So you don't want to be putting one right on a sewer service, because then you're asking for trouble,
Yeah. Okay.
who knows
Yeah.
how many decades down the
Yeah.
road.
I printed.
So, and then there are driveway offsets you need. You need distances from other trees, intersections. So you've got a good line of sight. So we might be, once we start excavating the sidewalks, we might find additional things limiting us from where we can put these trees. But at this time, these are the plans we have, using the available information we have. Yeah. So the dark green there is the existing trees? Yeah. I circled them just to be able to see them. But, yeah, some rough proposed locations, yep. It might go down, but either way, we're gonna be putting. That one, we don't know. We'd be getting them from DCR, and this is the available list that DCR gave us. So, I'm not a tree expert, so not too familiar with the types. But we could talk to DCR to get more information once we get closer. Yeah, we'll go right ahead. This is just a screenshot from the ADA website. It's a 48-foot minimum we need now for these sidewalks. These trees are really impacting. Thank you. Always bring a copy, extra copy.
Mike was not. So we have what existing trees are and the locations for the new trees?
No, a lot of that is due to either being in proximity to existing wheelchair ramps or in too close to existing driveways and or already on top of utilities, water utilities, sewer utilities. So we want to try to prevent that.
Anything further, sir? On the ones here for Barrett Ave? Okay. Okay.
Got a head count of about, excuse me,
What's that?
12 to 13 trees getting replaced, just on Beresford alone. So if we, I believe it's 5 we're proposing to cut.
Okay. Okay.
And just for clarification, I have it highlighted here, you're replacing the 5 you're taking down with 12 trees, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right.
So 5 down, 12 up? Okay.
If we do move forward with removing the actual trees, perhaps if we adjust the curb line, we might be able to keep them, but we're not going to know until we rip up the sidewalk to see the extent of the root intrusion.
Okay. Okay, thank you. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to the public. Anybody here this evening want to speak in favor of the tree removals on Beresford Street? In favor? In favor? In favor? That portion of the public hearing is over. Anybody in opposition? Anybody like to speak in opposition or speak at all? Yeah. Just state your name and address for the record, please, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Eli Ketchum. I'm a resident of 15 Beresford Ave, so I have an intimate acquaintance with one of these trees. I do appreciate the city team going back and coming up with a plan to add in more trees, and I think it's a good plan, although I'm disappointed that it does not look like I might get a tree back in front of my house. I just wanted to kind of, I don't know if this is exactly the right forum, but the manner by which we decided we need to get rid of the trees seems a little bit illogical. You know, we are doing street work because the gas may need to be replaced. And, you know, a lot of the sidewalks, I think, are still in pretty good shape. So I just wanted to say maybe for future projects, there's an opportunity to maybe just not touch the sidewalks, which are currently concrete. You know, they're Works Public Administration. They're in pretty good shape in a lot of places, almost 100 years old. And I think if we go and replace those with asphalt, you know, maybe 10 or 20 years, we'll have to go and put more asphalt down. I want to thank you guys for coming up with a replacement plan and just provide some feedback for maybe future streets and residents. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anybody else like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stephen Conant from 34 Barrasford Avenue. And I'd like to register opposition to the removal of the tree at 15 Barrasford Avenue specifically. And I appreciate the difficulties, the challenges of the sidewalks getting turned up by trees that have been growing there for 150 years. The one on Andover Street, I think, is a good example, although it's a very healthy tree and it is doing well. It would be a shame to see that tree come down. But specifically, speaking of 15 Barrasford Avenue, as Eli mentioned, it's sort of somewhat of a unique tree. My wife and I walk up that street every day. It does not pose a tripping hazard as maybe others do on the street. So in that particular case, I wish the city would take a closer look. I understand it's difficult when you get into the streets of cutting roots and like that. But if you think about it, trees are used to being pruned from the top. You know, National Grid has no trouble sort of taking out limbs and like that to prune it. It doesn't kill the tree. Similar thing is with roots. Just because you're pruning roots doesn't mean you're killing the tree. So I think I'd like to ask for specific consideration given to the tree at 15 Barrasford Avenue. And then in general, as I stated at the last meeting, I understand the challenge of sidewalks being upturned, but I would remind the board that we are Tree City USA, and that's because we put trees first. And I do believe the burden of proof on the removal of any tree is on those who are proposing to remove it. And in these cases, it hasn't been shown that these trees are unhealthy, that they pose a risk to the public in any way. Understand the upturned sidewalk is an element, but there should be creative ways that we can maybe move the sidewalk versus cutting the tree down, especially a tree that's, you know, the trees that are being put up will have, I think, maybe a 4-inch caliper. We're talking about trees that have 30-inch calipers in some cases. So a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1 replacement isn't even near the same as the trees that are coming down. And specifically, the one in front of 15 Barrasford Avenue, that tree provides a lot of shade. It helps in traffic calming, which is a big issue on Barrasford Avenue. So these are not just their aesthetic elements, but they also provide a whole lot of public benefits. And those need to be given consideration in addition to the considerations that we have for protecting a sidewalk. To say we took down a tree because the sidewalk was being damaged seems counterintuitive to what should be given priority before a tree board. So I would just ask you to keep that in mind looking at this. And also in future going forward, it was difficult to come in and realize that there wasn't really a planting plan, what types of trees, where they're going, that type of thing. And I don't fault necessarily the planning and development, DPD, for that, but it should be much more reasoned. The overall program itself, to see streets just, and I think of some gross examples on other parts of the city where healthy trees were taken down so sidewalks could go in. That's not to say ADA compliance is not important, but just like we have an historic building here, we meet ADA compliance not by sort of tearing out the history of it, but we meet it by doing creative ways to make that work. And I think ways that maybe you can move a sidewalk versus cutting down a tree should be given consideration. I haven't seen those types of alternatives come in here. And again, to begin with, I haven't seen any kind of arborist to make a presentation as to the health of the tree. We've had trees taken down which clearly posed hazards on our street. These are not the case. So I would just ask you to give that consideration. Also, just in terms of the number of trees, you know, the 2-for-1, if 5 come down, there's going to be 12. Well, that would make up for the tree that was never replaced up on the corner, which was a silver maple, which came down a couple of years ago, basically after a public hearing. So that tree was never replaced, nor were 2 others further down the street. So if any, as I say, in the time that I've been at Barrasford Avenue, I've seen at least 6 trees come down. And with this done, every tree that would have been on that street when it was put in will be gone. And so I think I encourage the tree board and the planning board to to give consideration to that, and I thank you for your hearing us tonight.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Anybody else like to speak? Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else? Hearing none, at this time, I'll turn it over to board members. Mr. Tenza, you want to go first?
Sure.
That way you can't say anything about Jerry?
That's fair. I very much appreciate the comments by Mr. Conant regarding unique trees. They're not a tripping hazard. Are there any alternatives? So far, that is, I don't think it's something that the city has considered. In my own neighborhood a few years back, way back in the day, probably decades ago, they just strip mined the streets. They basically, they turned them into concrete city. I thought it was a shame then. I still do. I think this city is slowly but surely coming along. The fact that we have a replanting plan is a step in the right direction, although getting it today really pissed me off, to be honest with you. It's nice that we got a replanting plan, but realistically, the public and the board needs to hear or see this at the time the petition is filed, so the public can look, address it, see what's being planted, see what's not being planted, where are they being planted. So I appreciate what the DPW is doing. It's slowly but surely, we're getting better, hopefully, as a city, including this board, at looking at things. According to our regulations, the tree, if it's interfering with existing structures, utilities, streets, sidewalks, or other improvements, we can consider it being taken down, and that the relocation of the tree is not feasible as certified by an arborist. Those are our rules. Some of that, I think, at the moment, we need to deal with some reasonableness. We're getting there, but we're only getting there slowly but surely. So I would like to get plans when it's filed. I certainly don't want to get them on the last day. And I certainly would like plans that I can see. And I appreciate this, but realistically, when we got them through the computer, it was very difficult to see what was being planted. You could see what was being taken down because it was bright green. But the areas where the new trees were going to go were difficult to see. Mr. Conant mentioned that trees were never replaced on the street. I think one of the things that I think will be important, because this is kind of a step in the right direction, is I want to hear personally whether these trees are replaced and when. We were told last year that trees were going to be replaced in certain neighborhoods in Pawtuckettville. Never seen them. Don't know where they were planted. They could have been, just don't know. We now have a replanting plan. Hopefully you can access that plan online and be able to let us know whether it's been done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Lucia, any questions?
I also appreciate the fact that we have members of our community appear before us to talk about the importance of trees in our city. And I agree that none of these trees looked diseased or damaged or, posed a threat otherwise. And I think it would be nice if we found ways or creative ways to save these trees, like I've seen in Cambridge, cutouts in the concrete so that they're still in the dirt. I've seen like different mattings that go over cracks in the sidewalk around the tree to save the tree, but still make the sidewalk safe. And believe me, I'm no arborist and I don't know what could be done, if anything, to salvage these trees, but I do think it's important going forward to look at ways to save trees, healthy trees.
Thank you. Mr. Fischett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I would agree in the sense that we really would prefer to get material in a more timely manner in order to have a proper time to really review it. And, but I have a question, really following up on one of the speakers here this evening. Can you explain a little bit on the reconstruction of the sidewalks? What is the treatment around these new trees going to be? Because to the point, is there going to be a public hearing 25 years from now where, they're going to take them down because same situation? So what are we doing to ensure that we're doing it right this time?
Well, our goal now is to make sure these sidewalks are ADA compliant. So with making the sidewalks compliant with the regulations for the time. So let's say in 20 years, they change these regulations. They were adopted at a previous time, so those requirements are no longer applicable.
So
Why?
I appreciate you doing the work to be ADA compliant. This is a tree hearing right now. So from the design of the sidewalks, because I really don't have any idea what the design is, what's the treatment around those trees so that they have the adequate space in order to, and in the species that you're planting, so that you don't have this situation with the roots? And I appreciate the Latin version of all these trees that you got from DCR, but didn't really appreciate it, to be honest with you. Give me the common name for all those trees. The only thing I knew on there were the maple trees, because I know what that starts with. But, so what is being planted? What's the, as far as those trees as they mature, how is it set up so that we're not revisiting this again with the same type of problems?
Currently, I believe the trees that are there have about a 1.5 to a 2-foot grass strip. I'm not sure how deep the soil is there. I'm not sure if there's ledge, but we clearly know it's not adequate given the...
You can see it. Yeah, I've got the pictures. I went out to each one of those trees and took a picture, and people can tell me it didn't affect the sidewalk. It did. All right, I've got pictures. I saw it. I walked on it. I get it. But what are we doing with the trees that you're going to plant? What is it going to look like? I have no real visual, to be honest with you, as to what that's going to look like.
For the proposed trees, 3 foot wide minimum for these new tree boxes. In addition to that, it'd be 3 feet deep of soil, along with minimum 10 feet long, each of these tree boxes for the trees. And then I believe there is a grass strip being put back for the remainder of the sidewalk.
So how is this, that would be helpful too, I guess, in the future, to have a good idea how this is going to be constructed. So how is that sidewalk going to be laid out? Are you saying there's a grass strip between the road and the sidewalk?
Well, currently, it's the curbing.
Right.
6-inch granite curbing, about 1.5 feet of grass strip, and then 3.5 feet of asphalt or concrete sidewalk.
So to have the box around the trees, how are you configuring the sidewalk?
The plan was to adjust the curb line to widen the sidewalks. Now, this is still going to be tricky with the 4-foot minimum requirement, given the existing trees, if we were to keep them. If we were to plant new trees, then we can adjust these widths to make sure that the 3-foot wide tree boxes will work, and the 4 feet compliance is also met from the sidewalk standpoint.
So you going in on the frontage of the houses, or are you coming out onto the street?
Into the roadway.
Into the road, okay.
Would you mind if I chimed in a little bit to that, if that helps bring a little
Sure.
clarity to it? So as part of an effort for traffic calming, this is something that we've taken up across the city in different places where we would design the road differently to bring, better pedestrian safety. And so in this case, we're oftentimes looking at narrowing the road slightly. In some cases, it includes having bump outs or the approach as it meets up with the adjacent street is turned so it's safer for clearing and things like that. So that's all part of it. And so with that, and it's not necessarily the case or option that we have throughout the city, depending on the section of the city that we're in. In this case, we'd be moving the curb lines in, so we'd be narrowing the street slightly, which will allow us to get the 4-foot sidewalks in, as well as an adequate planting strip for the trees going in. The other thing about this is as we're planting these trees, it's right tree, right place. That's all part of the master forestry plan that we have for the city. And so the trees are being chosen so they would, not cause the issue. They're not very deep rooting, so they don't get into the issue with utilities as often. The trees that we have in place very typically across the city are maples everywhere, and they're just the wrong tree for that location, and that, we can't change history there. And so that's what we're looking to fix as we move forward with the trees that are being planted in these cases. The one thing I'd like to bring up too, that really not part of this, but I don't want people walking away with the feeling that we're anti-tree or anything like that. If we look at last year's replacements, we had about 70 trees, I think, in total or so that we had to replace as part of that calculation for trees that were removed. But we planted 298 trees in different locations through the city, adding them to schools and green spaces and places, in particular going to where the heat islands are, different ways that we could add to those locations. So it is a fairly thoughtful process. I think some of what we try to do, prophylactically, I guess, with moving through with the improvement on that street is to have the tree hearing. If there's any way that we can figure out that we can keep that tree there, we would certainly look to have that happen. If we can, sometimes it's the matter of when you're there and on site and some of the obstacles that we come upon that we figure out, we're going to be able to keep this tree. It's a healthy tree, and we're able to work around it with the entire street layout, and that really does happen in the field. So if those can be kept, we certainly will, and if not, we'd be looking to replace it, and that's why we go through the process of the hearing. So we don't put the brakes on mid-construction to come back for that part of it. And we'll certainly be able to give a follow-up report for trees that are kept, if able, and give that updated plan for where they're going.
Sure. And I'm assuming by the time you get to this phase of all of this, you do have the design in place as to how you're going to configure the sidewalks. Is that correct?
I would say it's close. It's amazing how when you get out into the field, when you start taking into account like each driveway, the pitch of each driveway, and being able to build it in such a way that, the car doesn't bottom out coming out of the driveway and things like that. So they too take an awful lot into account in the field. And there's also sometimes when you come across something that might not have been mapped properly within the utilities that we come across that changes, where a curb stop might be or some piece of utility one way or another runs through.
I guess what I would like to see then, at least when you present tree removals to the board and replantings and with the sidewalk, how exactly, I want to see a schematics or whatever you want to call it of how that's going to be designed around the tree. So that we can see that and assure the public that was a good question, right? I mean, how are you going to, how are we going to do this so we're not going to still have the same problem, but we're just, basically repeating what we have here, and we want to have that assurance that in fact that proper care is being taken to provide proper space for the roots of the tree. What the species of the tree is, I'm not an arborist, but I think it would be important for the public to know even what is being planted there.
Sure, great points.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank
Happy to do that.
With that question, what type of trees are you looking to replace these with?
You have the list.
You have the list.
But there's all,
DCR would be the ones to talk to,
yeah,
what is available.
yeah. The list that we have is actually vast, and I'm happy to I think, part of what comes along out of this is depending on whether we ended up keeping the tree or not, would change that around, but we can certainly get this broken down so we lay that out within the plan that we submit for where the replanting is happening. I thought it was more about the location than the tree itself.
Right.
I mean, the whole idea for us is right tree, right place, that we're
Right.
putting.
No, we've, we're, at this point, it's been very clear. We wanted some clarification as where does the responsibility lie for the tree hearings, and we clarified that through Mass General Law that it's the planning board and not the Conservation Commission. And so if we're going to take ownership of it, I can tell you right now, what we're good at is doing what we're supposed to do.
I totally appreciate that.
So that's my concern as we look at this, is that we all have access to the tree ordinance. A lot of it is giving guidance to you as the city's tree, the tree warden. It also, I thought was interesting, though, it also references a replacement tree shall be located in accordance with a replication policy established by the city manager. I don't even know if that exists.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that would, I'd like to know if it even exists, because that's meant to give everybody guidance,
Sure.
right?
Follow up on that as well.
Okay. Those are my thoughts, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mashat. Tal, any questions, comments?
Nope.
Do you ever have any questions or comments? No. Okay. So I have one question. After hearing from the two speakers, is there, and looking at the pictures we have, after what we heard from them, could there be any reconsideration for number 15? Or, I mean, looking at that one, it doesn't look like the sidewalk is buckled up as much. And I don't know if by looking at that one, I know some of the other ones, you can definitely see where the curb's up. Like the one that looked, the one at the bottom of the street, probably the worst, number 54, that you can actually see where it comes up and down. But at 15, the ones that I believe the two speakers asked if we could consider maybe saving them, would be any consideration on that, or anything you'd like to add and respond to what they said?
Sounded like root trimming was an option.
I'm sorry?
We do have an item for root trimming, if we were to save the tree. That's something we could look into, but we won't know the extents until we rip up the existing sidewalk.
If there's a way for us to keep it, we certainly will. That's kind of the goal, is a way to work around that.
Yeah, because it seems like these two people live right there and
Sure.
walk it the most, and,
I'll be on site, so I can come and talk to you.
yeah. So, I mean, which is always nice, for the neighbors to come in and tell us, and a lot of them have been here before and said, oh, yeah, those roots are digging right into my sewer line. Get them out of here. We saw that up in the Highlands a couple of times. And the neighbors were like, please, please, because I've had that happen. It's not a pleasant sight.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's expensive, too.
Very expensive.
Yeah. Okay. So, so the vote we'll have will be first is on the, like I say, the Beresford, on the 4 trees. That should be 14, 15, 21, 54. The applicants indicated they'll do their best to try to keep number 15.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Mr. Fischett.
I'll make a motion with the following conditions, that the applicant take all reasonable measures to preserve the tree located at 15 Beresford. And the applicant will design the sidewalk to allow for the survival of the new trees and to prevent future damage to the new sidewalks that are being installed.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Tenza. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
All right.
Chair votes yes. Opposition? Hearing none for opposition, that motion carries. Good luck and thank you. Thank you for speaking tonight. Appreciate your help. Okay, moving along, next one we'll do will be the 486 Andover Street, which is right at the top of the street. Anybody in behalf of the, I think the petitioner covered that one already, basically. Anybody here want to speak in favor of the removal of 486 Andover Street? In favor, in favor, in favor, hearing none. That portion of public hearing is closed. Anybody want to speak in opposition of the 486 Andover Street?
Mr. Chairman, Stephen Conant, 34 Beresford Avenue. I think this tree, it's a healthy tree. I don't think there's been any indication that the tree itself is unhealthy. There's no question that it's pushing the sidewalk up, but I think this is a case where we could maybe look at some creative methods by which we could move the sidewalk to help to preserve this tree. I'll also note that we're talking about sightlines. I drive out of Beresford Avenue onto Andover Street every day of the week, sometimes 4 times a day. The issue isn't sightlines, it's speed on Andover Street. And so that tree, it stays there. It's not going to bother me. I know how to get out of that street. Maybe some people who are cutting through, and they'll learn how to do that as well. So I think I feel it an obligation that I speak in opposition to the removal of this tree for the sidewalk. And it's not to say all the stuff that the city is proposing. I know people have tripped in that location, I believe. It's not to say that it's the best, but again, I think the burden of proof in a situation like this, that tree, it's a silver maple, it's got a girth of, I can't get my arms around it, okay? And the shade that it provides and the traffic calming effect on a very busy street, I think, is not to be underestimated. So I feel it my obligation to speak in favor of not having that tree removed. Thank you.
Mr. Conant, can I ask you one question? I know you come up and down that street every day because you live there. Just by looking at the picture here, and I'm familiar with the street very well, you know the street, does that obstruct any of the traffic sight line when you pull up, looking to your left? Because if you look at the picture that we have, see how it angles out more towards the Andover Street? So I know you pull up Beresford every day, so do you have any problem with your sight line looking to the left? I know to the right, there's not a tree there. But I noticed that when I was walking this site, that whether that had the sightline issue because of the way it's angled towards Andover Street. But I mean, like I say, you drive up there every day, so
I get out there
probably,
safely every day.
probably several times a day, like most homeowners do on their own street.
I get through there safely every day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. To have that tree removed because, you know, certainly if with it gone, I could see much further. But the issue isn't the tree; it's the speed of the traffic coming down the street.
Yeah.
So it's the ability, how quickly you can see that traffic coming. So I wouldn't put that burden on the tree. I'd put that on other issues.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. Anybody else like to speak on in regards to this matter? Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, so that public hearing, part of the hearing is closed. So what is the recommendation from the board for 486 Andover Street?
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the comments from Mr. Conant, but, and I know the replacement plan on Beresford has one just right around the corner. I know it's not right on Andover Street. As a matter of fact, it's set back a little bit, so as you get to the corner, you know, the tree won't be there. You know, I'm looking at the photo, you know, as everybody else, I went to the site and looked at it as well. And it's right on a major thoroughfare. Not sure what can be done with the sidewalk. Certainly, we can make the condition that that DPD take all measures to try to preserve the tree, but I think there's some challenges there as well. And again, under the tree ordinance for sidewalks, utilities, structures, that's all in play as far as taking into consideration what should be done with the tree. it's a very mature tree, and I certainly understand that. There is, I think, obviously, the tree-lined street of Andover Street adds to that character of that neighborhood, and it's actually quite attractive, and when you look at this photo, it's still, I don't think will distract terribly from that environment on Andover Street. But certainly, if they, once you're on site, if you feel you can preserve that in some way, that's fine. There's no, but I certainly understand the challenges with that tree in that location. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so that was the motion to allow the tree to be removed. We have a second on the matter?
Second.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Your vote yes. Any opposition? Opposed? So we have 4 in favor and 1 against for the Andover tree. Okay, moving along, the next one will be the tree removal of Ruth Street and Parker Street. This is, the city of Lowell proposed to remove 1 tree located at 406 Parker Street / Ruth Street, 1 maple tree approximately 24 diameter located at the above address. The overgrown root system damaging existing sidewalk creates a significant tripping hazard in addition to the already non-ADA compliant sidewalks. Removal of these trees is necessary in order to perform the task involved in the reconstruction project, including granite curbing, installing an ADA compliant sidewalk construction. So we have a picture of this, and we have the replanting. Whoops, that's my wrong one. Yep. And we have the replanting scheme. Did the applicant want to be heard any further on this, or basically what I just read is, do
Say that again?
you want to be heard any further on what I read about the one on Parker Street, on Ruth and Parker, that removal?
No.
Okay, so you're gonna replace, okay, existing trees. And how many putting up, okay.
For clarification, you're replacing it with 3 trees, is that correct from what I'm seeing here?
Putting back 3 trees in addition to the 2 that we plan on removing,
Yeah, okay.
if the utilities allow.
I will, I'll say, so, that's interesting. We're approving what you're presenting here. So if the utility doesn't allow it, are you going to try to relocate it, or are you just saying you're not going to plant another tree?
Relocate it.
So it would be in the general location, but just not necessarily, because if we're approving, if you're presenting a plan with like 12 trees in Beresford and 3 trees, and we approve it, that's what I expect to see. It's just that it may not be in the exact location. I just want to make sure we're clear on that. Okay,
Yes.
all right, okay. Thank you.
Anybody here want to speak in favor of the removal of the tree on Parker Street / Ruth Street? Anybody in favor? In favor? In favor? Anybody like to speak in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not here to speak in opposition, but I couldn't resist the, I grew up on Ruth Street. I spent the first 10 years of my life there. And it was a tree-lined street at that time, and if you go down there now.
You haven't been on all these streets.
I've been on, I've been around this.
Tell me that Magnolia, right? Wait till we get to Pawtucket.
So I would just, encourage the DPW, as many street plantings as you can do on Ruth Street. It's not the same street, and largely because those trees are gone, and I hate to see that happen throughout the city. I mean, we don't give enough consideration as to the value that the trees provide. And again, one of the reasons Lowell is a Tree City USA is because we take a little bit extra step that maybe some other cities don't. And I appreciate what the DPW is doing to carry on that, and also the difficulty you have in sort of making two things happen. But I couldn't resist the opportunity to say something about Ruth Street and the importance of trees in that neighborhood. I will leave you to the motions and like that, but thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak? Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, at that point in time, I'll move it over to the board members.
If I may.
Sure.
I just had a question. You had mentioned that on Beresford, you intend to replant the trees in tree boxes. Is that the plan for all of the replantings?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may ask, is there a reason why you didn't, because you're removing one tree closer to Parker Street, but you don't have a replanting of one in that area? I'm just curious as to, all three that I can see are towards Wedge, and I'm just curious as to why you wouldn't want to try to put one down in that direction, unless I'm missing it, right? I have the three closer to Wedge, and you are taking one down that's like almost when you get right to Parker, right at that intersection.
The reason why the 3 new proposed trees were located on that portion of Ruth is there are no immediately abutting houses right there. The services either go out to Wedge Street or on the next street for those properties.
Okay.
So there were no conflicting utilities right there. Or there is a driveway for number 61, Wedge. But yes, it was mostly the lack of utility conflict.
I really would like you to take a look at possibly somewhere towards that area of Ruth, that whether or not you can, I have to think there's got to be some area where you can put a street tree here.
The Parker side?
Sure, towards Parker. There has to be.
Yeah.
Even the way these houses are configured, look at, they have a lot of space, yard space to one side of them. I just, not necessarily, and again, I don't know how the utility lines run down the street, but at least utilities going to the houses, I can't imagine you don't have some spots here where you can put.
Yeah, it's utility offsets you need offsets from driveways.
Understood. Yeah, no, understood.
But that's something we could look into.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'll make a motion that we approve the application with the recommendation that we try to put one of the replanting trees closer to Parker Street.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add.
Sure.
I think with each one of these, we'll keep the condition that the applicant will, again, design the boxes around the plantings to ensure the survival of the tree and to prevent future damage of the new sidewalks.
Sure, I'll make that as a form of a motion as well. So I'll make the motion in favor with those 2 conditions.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that matter's been approved. Okay, so let's see what we got next. That one's down. So now we're on to Varnum Ave. Let's see, which one we got next? Let's see. one, so we have Magnolia Street and 320 Bonham Ave. So we have 3 on Magnolia Street, we got 320 Magnolia Street, figure 1 on the left, 320 Magnolia Street, figure 1 on the right, 320, Bonham Ave, Magnolia side, figure 2. So we have 2 of them, which are side by side, and then we have the single one by the fence, yeah. And then you have the one at 42 Magnolia, yeah. Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so these are 42 Magnolia, that's the single tree. Okay, anybody want to speak in favor of the tree removals on Magnolia / Bonham Ave? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anybody in opposition for the ones on Magnolia or Bonham Ave? In opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none. This time, what's the question any questions for the board? This is Magnolia. So this is the street that looked like it was all dirt getting ready to get paved. I'm not sure if it's been paved since I've been there, but since the last meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I have no comments.
Any of the board members, anybody else have any comments on this petition?
Mr. Chairman, if I might,
Sure.
maybe not, well, it applies to this as well as all of the petitions moving forward. I think a number of things that Vice Chairman mentioned, for future replanting plans, we're going to need common names of the trees, just so we can understand what's being planted. We're going to need to see a layout of the sidewalk, which will help us determine whether we've made all reasonable steps necessary to potentially save the trees. That is our job. So I think moving forward, we need to see the layout of the sidewalk, showing us what the sidewalk is going to look like. Are there going to be tree boxes? Are there going to be, how is it going to be configured? Also, if there's going to be any bump outs, is that available? What else? We mentioned a replication policy. I think a number of times we've heard about this master tree policy that the city is either in the process of or trying to figure out. But I do think, as Vice Chairman Frechette mentioned, is it would be helpful to know, all right, what is the policy that we're trying to comply with? So I think moving forward, we're all working at this and we're all trying to make it better. I appreciate what the DPW is doing, but we need to continue to get better. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other board members have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, I just want,
Yeah.
I know that it's very frustrating for the DPW, coming up with this plan, and I know they take every effort to, make complying with our request. I think that's, just want to take this moment to comment on the effort that they put forward. And I think that, I think this is a lesson that I think we want to, show to them that, proper plan, details, that way, in the future, I think we take less time to kind of instructing, how we want this to be done. Just want to make that comment.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, what's the request for the one on Bonham Ave? That's the one we're on right now.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the tree removal plan and the replanting plan for Magnolia and Bonham Ave, again incorporating the same condition with the design to allow for the tree to survive and prevent future damage to the sidewalk.
So we have a motion by the vice chair. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye. Chair votes yes. Any opposition? Hearing none, that motion carries. So I think we're down to the last one, which is Wedge Street. This is tree removal, Ruth Street, 51 Wedge Street. This is one tree requested be removed for the same reasons as indicated, overgrown root system, existing sidewalk creates tripping hazard, and they want to conform to American with Disabilities Act. We have the pictures below. So this is just a one tree removal. Anybody like to speak in favor of the tree removal on Route 3/Wedge? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. Anybody in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none. That portion of the hearing is open. Closed. Any of the board members have any comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to, again, approve the plan with, again, incorporating that same condition that the applicant ensure that the planting of the new tree, actually, there is no replanting plan with this, is that correct? Or did I miss that?
This is the same plan as Ruth Street?
It really, yeah, so it was a separate tree, though, that we had on there?
It shows the tree on the plan, it's just in front of the house number 51 Wedge.
Yes, they had it as a separate petition, but it's part of the plan the replanting is what we previously approved. That's, yep. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for approval. Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Chair votes yes. Any opposition? Hearing none, then the matter is approved, and I think that completes all the tree hearings. If I missed any, please let me know. Okay, we got Magnolia, Andover, Beresford, Barnum, Wedge, and Parker. Yeah, we're all set. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add, and there were residents in the city of Lowell that did get mailings from, I believe it was DCR, for you could apply for and get a free tree. And I did. And they came in the fall and marked out, I wanted a red maple. And they came this spring and they planted it. And it's towards the street, but it's on my property. And
So we can't take it down?
You can't take it down. So I take it personally very seriously, and that was a great opportunity. They came and they planted it. I just signed an agreement that I'm going to water it at least once a week, and it stays alive for, hopefully you get it past a couple of years here, and it looks great. It absolutely fantastic. I think they planted it, and I think it's 12 feet tall, it's a good-sized tree, and it really looks great. So anyway, that is available. I had neighbors that they thought it was a joke. And I said, I looked at that and they didn't follow up. And I said, no, I called, and sure enough, they came and and it's done. It's planted in my yard, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, moving along on the agenda, next matter we have, let me just get this out of the way, is a site plan review revision and special permit amendment, 190 and 198 Plain Street. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to all interested persons relative to an application by Lowell Dev LLC to revise their site plan review approval and amend their special permit for a project located at the above address. The applicant was granted approval on December 4, 2023, to construct 3 separate restaurant buildings. They are now proposing to increase the size of Building 1 and Building 2 and reduce the number of parking spaces. The subject property is located in the Regional Retail Zoning District. The proposal requires site plan review approval from the Planning Board per Section 11.4 for the commercial construction with a drive-through and for the construction of a parking area with greater than 14 spaces. special permit approval from the Lowell Planning Board for section 12.4, small g1 for a restaurant drive-through, and special permit approval from the Planning Board for section 6.155 and section 11.3 to reduce the parking requirement for restaurants by 1 space per 250 square feet. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, before I start my remarks, may I approach and provide the board with a couple of documents?
Absolutely, Counsel. No trees? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Good evening to all. For the record, my name is John Geary of Geary & Geary LLP, 32 Church Street, Lowell, Mass. I'm here tonight representing the applicant Lowell Dev LLC. With us tonight, we have Lawrence Van Bassett. Lawrence is with us virtually. Lawrence is the Director of Real Estate Development for the LLC, for the applicant. We also have Chris Shea of Tree Engineering. Chris is the engineer for the project, and we have Derek Roach of Vaness and Associates, the transportation engineer for the project. As the chairman mentioned, this application involves the request to amend 2 special permits and to revise a site plan which were approved back on December 4th, 2023. There was a special permit issued at that time pursuant to 12.4G1 to allow for each of the 3 proposed fast food restaurants to have drive-through facilities, and there was a special permit issued pursuant to section 6.1.55 in order to reduce the parking to 1 space per 250 square feet. In addition to amending the special permits, we're also requesting the board approve the revised site plan, which is before you. I should note that the uses that we're proposing, that of the 3 fast food restaurants with less than 5,000 square feet, are an allowed use within the regional retail zoning district. In advance of tonight's hearing, we've provided the board with a revised site plan, which includes the landscape plan, the lighting plan, and a swept path analysis. I provided you with an amended swept path analysis just a minute ago. You should have renderings of each building, an updated traffic impact assessment, along with a memo from Jeffrey Dirk that's dated May 15, 2025, which was a response to the city's transportation engineer's memo. We've also provided an updated storm water management report. Subject properties are located at 190 and 198 Plain Street, located within the regional retail zoning district. The total land area of the combined parcels is 87,828 square feet, so just over 2 acres of land. The site is the former location of the VFW Walker Rogers Post 662 Lodge. Property hasn't been used as a lodge now for several years, and the applicant purchased the property back in December of 2023. Since the approvals were received in December of 2023, 2 of the 3 restaurants that were proposed have pulled out of the site. Fortunately, the applicant has been able to replace tenants, those 2 tenants, with what most people would consider higher quality tenants for the site. So the approvals that were allowed in December of 2023 were 3 fast food restaurants. We had proposed at that time a Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen, a Taco Bell, and a Smoothie King. Popeyes continues to be committed to this site. Taco Bell and Smoothie King have pulled out of the site, and we are proposing to replace those 2 restaurants with a Starbucks and a Chipotle's. In addition to the change of the restaurants at the site, the square footage of the proposed buildings is changing slightly. So the layout is, at this point, Building 1, which is looking at the site plan from left to right or from west to east, building number 1 is the location of Chipotle. This building will consist of approximately 2,325 square feet of interior space. The original approvals provided for Building 1 to be the location of Popeyes with about 2,000 square feet of space. Building 2, which is the middle building, will be the location of Starbucks. That building will consist of approximately 2,500 square feet, and the original approvals for Building 2 provided for Taco Bell with about 2,030 square feet of space. Building 3 will be the location of Popeyes. This building will consist of 1,500 square feet. The original approvals provided for Building 3 to be the location of Smoothie King with about 2,045 square feet of space. Popeyes will be a drive-through only. There will be no interior seating associated with that restaurant at all. So overall, we're proposing approximately 250 square feet more than what was previously approved for the combined square footage of the 3 buildings. In terms of parking, we're proposing 4 less parking spaces than what was approved in 2023. The narrative that I submitted, the site plan that we submitted, shows that we have 43 parking spaces. There's an extra parking space on the site plan. We have 44 parking spaces. And I'll go into the parking in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. As you all know, this property is located across the street from the Meadowbrook Plaza, the signaled intersection, which is Meadowbrook Plaza, also known as the Target Plaza. It's in very close proximity to the on-off ramp of the Lowell connector at Plain Street. Properties are also adjacent to the Lowell Car Wash, bordered by commercial uses to the rear of the property along Montreal Street, bordered by residential properties to the easterly end of the property, and by many commercial properties across the street from the property. There are a few national chains in this stretch of Plain Street from Chelmsford Street running beyond this property. We have a Walgreens, we have a McDonald's, and we have a Target. The staff comments will allow us to dive into the details of the parking and how the revisions which we are proposing tonight continue to meet the criteria for issuance of these special permits and approval of the revised site plan. So the first 3 comments simply summarize the project. Comment number 4 states that the special permits which have been issued need to be amended because the proposal has changed, which is why we're here tonight. This comment also summarizes the parking. So the numbers are off a little bit. I'm going to go through the actual numbers. Building number 1, which is Chipotle, will have 14 parking spaces. Building number 2, which is the middle building, Starbucks, will have 19 parking spaces associated with it. Building number 3 will have 11 parking spaces. That is Popeyes. And again, Popeyes is a drive-through only facility. So really, that's far more parking than is necessary for that building. All we really need is parking for the employees. When we were before the board back in 2023, we justified the reduction in parking by using brand standards for parking for the restaurants. Unfortunately, neither Starbucks nor Chipotle uses brand standards for their parking. However, we've been able to confirm with representatives from both restaurants that the parking being provided is sufficient, considering that each restaurant will have drive-through facilities, and there's some function of common parking. So one of the handouts that I provided you was a letter from a representative of the Chipotle Mexican Grill. That correspondence indicates that Chipotle has reviewed the site plan for this property, and they are comfortable with the layout and the parking that's being provided. And they also point out that they don't have their typical drive-through where you pull up to the menu, you order, you pull around, you wait for your food, and you go. They have a pickup window. So you order through the app, you pull up to the pickup window, you get your food, and you go. The queue moves much faster, and it's a very popular feature for Chipotle. So that limits, obviously, the customers going into the restaurant as well. So in addition to that information, and to further support the request for the reduction of parking, it's important to point out that Starbucks and Chipotle have opposite peak hours. Starbucks is a morning business for the most part, and Chipotle is an afternoon, evening business.
I'd also note that Starbucks is the middle building, so they are able to cheat a little bit off of the excess parking at Popeyes. Those factors, combined with the fact that the nature of fast food restaurants these days is either for people to visit the drive-through or pickup windows, or, for that matter, to use delivery services such as Uber Eats or DoorDash, where those drivers, the customer orders on the app, the drivers pull up to the restaurant, they park for 5 minutes, run in, grab the food that's already been prepared and ready for them, and they're in and out in 5 minutes. So that further supports the request for the reduction in parking. We believe that we meet the spirit of 6.1.55, and in fact, if you're doing the calculation for 6.1.55, based on the total square footage, we're required to have 26 parking spaces. Again, we're providing 44, so we're not quite doubled that, but we're far in excess of the minimum that is required pursuant to 6.1.5. The last thing I would suggest about the parking is that these restaurant chains have had the opportunity to review the site plans that are before them before they entered into development agreements with the developer. And if they thought for a minute that parking was going to be a problem, they would not commit the millions of dollars that they are going to commit over the life of a long-term lease at this site. Comment number 5 indicates that the proposal meets the requirements of 6.1.9, which is landscaped open space. We do meet that requirement. The staff suggests that we could make improvements. We're happy to consider any improvements or suggestions that the staff has. And if the board would like to make any approval condition upon a DPD approval of the landscape plan, we're happy to entertain that. The planning and project management team comments indicate that the project is located within the Ayers City Urban Renewal Plan area, and that the inclusion of 3 fast food restaurants may be too intensive a use for future interactions. So in response to that comment, I would suggest that the project meets the goals of the Urban Renewal Plan, the Lowell Forward Plan. The redevelopment of this property will activate a very, very underutilized property within the city and within the regional retail district. It will result in the creation of jobs, and considering that the previous use of this property was that of a tax-exempt entity, it will substantially increase the real estate tax revenue to the city, as well as revenue to the city during the build-out, the permitting phase. And also, what we are proposing is in character with the existing neighborhood that this property is in, and it's consistent with the goals of the regional retail district, which are to promote the development of retail and related businesses, which draws its market from citywide and regional areas. That is exactly what these 3 restaurants do. Again, this stretch of Plain Street is a heavily commercialized area from the intersection of Chelmsford and Plain all the way through this property. What we are proposing aligns with the Lowell Forward Plan, the Urban Renewal Plan, and is in compliance with the Regional Retail Zoning District. The comments from the fire department indicate some concerns regarding navigating through the property. So we had a Zoom meeting this afternoon with Deputy Chief Crabtree relative to his concerns. And his primary concern was that he would like to have access around the back of buildings number 2 and 3. The site plan as drafted when you go around building 3, it dead ends at a dumpster. We have, the engineers, Chris and her team, have taken another look at that. The swept path analysis that I provided as a handout just a few minutes ago shows that we are able to accomplish his goal and provide a throughway through the entire back of the property. So again, Deputy Chief Crabtree his primary concern was getting to the back of the buildings. We believe that we have solved that. He wasn't so concerned with the comments mentioned, fire trucks going over islands or swinging into opposite paths. He wasn't so concerned about that. If the board is inclined, we would be happy to condition any approval on the deputy chief approving that revised swept path analysis. We understand that you just can't take our word for that. I'll leave the comments regarding stormwater, wastewater, and water department to Chris when she presents 'cause that is more up her alley. Regarding the memo from Liz Altman, the city's transportation engineer, we're essentially in agreement with her remarks, and as I alluded to earlier, Jeffrey Dirk issued a memo after Ms. Altman's comments came out, basically, in a nutshell, agreeing to all of her additional suggestions or conditions. So Derek will go over that in a little bit more detail, but I think essentially we are in agreement with the city's transportation engineer. So I think this is a good time to turn the presentation over to Chris so she can go through the site plan and the other plans with the board. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christine Shea with DePreet Engineering of 2 Stafford Court in Cranston, Rhode Island. I don't know if it's helpful to have all the slides up or if you want to blow up one of them. I think we can skip past the first 3 are just renderings of each of the buildings, the Popeyes, the Starbucks, and the Chipotle. Chipotle, it's a little dark, but the rendering given to us was provided with a nighttime view. And the 4th slide just describes the team. Attorney Gary did do an excellent job of going through the existing conditions, but the 5th slide is an aerial view of the site as it exists today. It's a 1.7 acre site that's occupied by a VFW building that's roughly 7,000 square feet. So the area of that building is actually larger than the 3 combined fast food restaurants that are proposed. And there's also a large parking lot, 1.4 acres is occupied by pavement out of the 1.7 acre site. So this site is in the ballpark of, is certainly over 90, closer to 95% impervious between rooftop and parking lot. One of the questions that came up, and I took a couple of street views of a street view of the site and an aerial view, was a question regarding landscaping. There's very little landscaping at the site today. There's a small section of not thriving shrubs along Plain Street. There are 5 large pine trees along Montreal that would be coming out as part of this project. And then the slide view to the left shows a small area of the site, which is just about the only non-paved area. There are no trees in that area. It's adjacent to a wooded area, but there are no trees on site. So roughly, like I said, out of the 1.7 acres, it's almost entirely impervious surfaces today. It's actually 2 parcels that are divided by an access road that it's even on Google Maps as Eaton Street. It is not an actual street, but it's used as such. And under our original proposal and under this proposal, you can see that that road is maintained for access to the neighborhood, to Montreal Street and the other neighborhoods behind, because it's often used. My understanding is it's often used. And so that's why the Chipotle is building 1 on the left, divided by the private way of Eaton Street, and then the 2 other restaurants. So I don't think I need to go into great detail. Attorney Gary described each of the buildings, the parking lots. But what you can see that we did significantly is improve the amount of green space that is on the site. So we are making some changes, as he discussed, with the swept path for the fire trucks. But our plan is roughly a 20% landscape over the entire site, including the requirement for 5% interior landscape. There were some comments from the, let me just make sure I have the name correct. It is the Planning and Project Management Team, specifically asked, not that we add more landscaped areas, but that maybe we consider different species of trees and different landscape materials, and we're happy to do that as a condition of approval. And the fire department, in their comments, questioned whether the vehicles were traveling over curbing or over landscape materials. That's just misunderstanding of the vehicle path that's shown. So we show not only the vehicle tires across the site, but we also show the body of the vehicle. And in some cases, the body did go over the landscaped areas. So in those areas, we would have to ensure that, that the plantings were low-growth plantings, short, like grasses and things like that, and no shrubs or trees in those areas. One of the, and I mean, as far as utilities, there are all utilities available to the site: municipal water, sewer, natural gas, overhead, telephone, electric, telecommunications. And the next, that slide that's color-coded, it's got two different versions of the site. You can see on the top, as I had described before, a nearly impervious site. An interesting thing is that roughly 70% of the site, the stormwater from that parking lot flowed behind the VFW building and into to the woods, and then towards Tanner Street through private property. Very little came out to Plain Street. 30% of the site flowed out of the driveways and out onto Plain Street. What we did with our stormwater management plan was we went out with the help of GZA, geotechnical engineers, evaluated the soil conditions, groundwater table, and were able to redirect the stormwater that would have gone over private property out to Tanner Street, and we're introducing an underground infiltration system along with some pretreatment BMPs. And so what we've done is we've decreased the rate and volume of stormwater runoff, actually not only to Tanner Street, but also to Plain Street. So we have only one small section, just because of topography and elevations for groundwater. We have a small section of the parking lot at Chipotle that was unable to be directed to the infiltration system. And then one of the comments that we got from the wastewater utility, we had originally been directed to take that small area of runoff and tie it into the combined sewer that's on Plain Street. There's, I guess, some change in perspectives there, and they have now requested that we tie into a dedicated drain line, and there are two options for that. One is roughly 200 feet or so west to the intersection of Tanner Street and Plain Street, and make a connection there into a dedicated drain manhole at that intersection. Alternatively, there is a private drainage system that Target maintains and provides the city with documentation of annual maintenance of that system. We can approach Target and see if we can make that connection, but I think as a request for a condition of approval, we'd be happy to make a dedicated a dedicated drainage connection that's satisfactory to the wastewater utility. As far as utilities, one of the comments from the planning group was that we try to see if we could introduce green infrastructure into the project. That's a terminology, it's a kind of a broad brush terminology, but the idea is to use soils and other materials to direct stormwater back into the ground as opposed to letting things run off. So an infiltration system is a green infrastructure practice. It's just not one that you normally see on the surface, like rain gardens or bioretention areas. But we have done that with this project. So the water is treated through the sand and returns to the groundwater, and very little is directed into the closed drainage system. So, and you can see that in that, let's see, the 10th slide shows the location. We have two underground infiltration systems that were approved originally. There's very little change. The change of the tenants didn't really alter the drainage analysis in any significant fashion. So that drainage system that's shown is exactly what was provided in the original approval. So I think the last thing, I think one last thing on utilities. There was a request that the grease trap be incorporated in, the O&M for the grease trap be incorporated into the stormwater permit. We'd be happy to accept that condition. And then my last area of discussion is the fire department. As Attorney Gary mentioned, we were able to have a call today and talk through what improvements we could make to the site design. That's the plan that is in front of you. As our first pass, we did it after a early afternoon meeting and tried to get something to you for this evening so that you could at least take a look. We have not provided that back to the fire department for their review, but I think it's consistent with our discussion this afternoon. The main change is that he requested is that he wanted sort of a perimeter road that got him around the entire site and around the backs of all of the buildings. And you can see from that plan, we have a counterclockwise circulation that allows, and what you're seeing as far as that circulation, that is the largest vehicle that's used by the Lowell Fire Department, which is their ladder truck. And we show a graphic of the ladder truck. So anything smaller most certainly can make those maneuvers as well. That's your worst case scenario where the ladder truck is required to go around. So that, I think, covers all of the comments. There was one last comment the fire department made regarding water services and requiring a separate domestic from fire protection lines into each building, but the buildings are not required to be sprinklered, which is why we did not show a separate fire protection service to each building. And I believe that covers everything that Attorney Geary did not necessarily cover in detail. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Hi, yes. For the record, my name is Derek Roach. I'm a transportation engineer with Manassas Associates. We're the transportation engineers on the project. So we did a standard traffic study. We looked at the intersections of Plain Street at the two ramps here, Tanner Street, the Target intersection, Eaton Street, and Main Street. We did standard time periods: weekday morning peak hour, peak period 7 to 9 a.m. we did counts, weekday evening peak periods 4 to 6 p.m. we did counts, and then Saturday midday 11 to 2 p.m. So those are the peak times for the project uses, as well as the commuting on the side streets going by the project. We conducted trip generation. These numbers are a little small on that screen. But in the end, this site is expected to produce 81 to 190 peak hour trips, new trips to the site. That's between 92 and 189 pass-by trips. Pass-by trips are trips of people who are going on their way to a different destination and decide to stop on the site on the way, so they're not newly generated to the mainline traffic by the project. They're people already going by the site. And that's a reduction from the previous approved project by, one second. It's a reduction of 630 daily trips. It's a reduction in the weekday morning peak hour of 37 trips, the weekday evening peak hour of 28 trips. It is an increase during the Saturday midday peak hour of 34 trips, but it's a reduction for the rest of the days. So we did a standard capacity analysis looking at those intersections. We provided a number of recommendations. As Gary said, the transportation engineer took a look at the project. They agreed with all of the recommendations we proposed, as well as some additional recommendations, I think 4 additional ones that we also agreed to. Those recommendations include things like traffic signal timing optimization at the signalized intersections of Plain Street and Target and Plain Street and the northbound ramps. Safety improvements, including trimming vegetation, removing a fence along the property line to improve sight lines for the driveways, for the access. Other safety improvements, including adding retroreflective strips to the back plates of the signal heads and similar retroreflective plates to the stop signs at some locations. Do not block pavement markings on the westbound Plain Street approach at Eaton Street. When we do the signal optimization at Target, we're also going to be taking away the signal heads for the approach to the former VFW parking lot and goring out the left turn lane going into there so that there's no confusion. That's not an access anymore. And yeah, so I think that generally covers the proposed improvements. Like we said, we're in agreement with the city engineer. We've acquiesced to all the requests. And so I guess I will give it back to John.
Thank you, Derek. So that's a pretty comprehensive assessment of the proposal. I think in summary, the redevelopment of this property as it's being proposed by the applicant is an economic opportunity for this underutilized property. The beneficial impacts of the proposed redevelopment of the property will far exceed any negative adverse effects, if any. The residents of the city of Lowell will benefit from the increased opportunity for jobs, and the city of Lowell will benefit from the increased revenues in terms of real estate taxes and revenue during the build-out of the permitting phase. We believe that we meet all of the criteria for issuance of the requested special permits, and we believe that we meet the criteria for approval of the site plan. We respectfully request both this evening. We're here, we're happy to answer any questions that the board members may have or anybody in the public. So at this point, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, at this point in time, I'll turn the matter over to the public. Anybody here this evening like to speak in favor of this project? In favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. At this point in time, anybody like to speak in opposition? In opposition, yes, come to the microphone, just state your name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Denise Eaton. I live at 14 Montreal Street. Have been there for 49 years. I have a question in regards to everything's been talked about, the traffic for Eaton Street. Eaton Street, as we know, is non-existent, but Montreal Street is the one that is going to be running down to the back of these properties. I raised questions about this at the other meetings, and I'm still not hearing a full answer to how is things going to be diverted, or are things going to be increased? There was no traffic study on Montreal Street because it wasn't seemed to be necessary. I disagree with that because people coming through those drive-throughs, are they going to be exiting only onto Plain Street? I think they're going to be cutting through to avoid the traffic, coming down Montreal Street, which only has 7 houses and 2 businesses at the end. So that's not the greatest access, but people do it all the time now because they cut through that VFW parking lot. So it needs more addressing in that regard, just as a consideration. And I'm concerned about the rubbish, which I stated before too. With any of these buildings, please believe me, I really want to see something in that parking lot. I want to see an empty building gone. Like I said, I've lived there 49 years. We've heard and seen a ton of things. Oh, this is happening, that's happening. Nothing ever happens. But my issue is with small businesses like that, they don't maintain their rubbish properly at the back of their buildings, which is coming onto Montreal Street. If people are using the drive-through and coming through Montreal as an exit, I know what's going to happen with the Starbucks mugs and the trays and the trash from Popeyes. It'll be dumped in front of my property. I pick up stuff now from people who are inconsiderate. We see it all over the city. It's not addressed, and that's an issue for me. I've lived there and maintained property the right way. So the big issue is the traffic and the issue of rubbish and things. And so how is the landscaping? You mentioned landscaping. I'm hard of hearing. I'm sorry I couldn't hear you appropriately. As far as what kind of landscaping? Is there going to be fencing along the back?
Would you like me to respond to some of her comments?
Sure. I have no problem
I mean,
with that.
just briefly, I will say that there is fencing proposed along the residential boundary as well as landscaping. There's a required 15-foot landscape setback, which we've maintained. I think it's 15, it might be 10. Whatever the requirement is, there is a landscape buffer along the residential property.
Because I know the businesses down there, they're concerned too,
Yep.
because of what they've had to maintain over the years because of an empty lot that we've dealt with.
And I know that there were questions on the traffic, and I know that there was a condition of approval originally, and we did alter the signage. And unfortunately, I cannot honestly remember whether it was enter only or exit only out of that onto Montreal. But that was something that was a condition of the original permit, and that was maintained in this design.
Which, if it was that way, it would be wonderful. If it
Yeah.
could be done that way. Certainly, the fire department needs access, because that was our concern originally, that would they have access coming from Plain Street, not necessarily swinging in there, and then coming down Montreal, were they going to have enough to do that too? The other thing is the timeline. Like, when is it proposed that you're going to be starting to get rid of that building and to get going?
It would be fairly quickly after the, all of these approvals.
If we finally
They
get
would-
the approvals?
Yeah, if we get the approvals, then the next step would be to get a demolition permit and demo the building. And I know that there's an aggressive schedule on the part of the tenants to move these things along, so I think it would be fairly quickly after approvals are granted, assuming they're granted. The dumpsters, they are enclosed. They have the.
They should be.
Yeah.
That's a big issue for
With
me.
the gates and so that's the best we can hope for, and if there's any,
I just have had real issues with that driving through the city, that those things don't seem to be addressed properly.
yeah.
That
These are,
nobody seems to go after the businesses when they're not keeping up the property, not just the front, but the back. And it should be the whole thing, bottom line. I mean,
I mean, a lot of people just throw it right out the window. I watch it all the time. Cigarette butts, everything, you name it.
I mean, if you get on the connector at Plain Street and you look at the rubbish there, it's
Sure.
an absolute disgrace. That is individuals, not just businesses.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
it's a shameful way that people are living,
Totally agree.
but we're not addressing enough of it, I don't think, in the city, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in opposition? Anybody else in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion is closed. Attorney Gary, do you have any response before I turn over to board members?
With regard to the dumpsters, I would say, I agree that there are, a lot of small businesses don't maintain, but I would suggest the fast food restaurants probably do a better job than that. Their reputation depends on it. If they have overflowing dumpsters, that's a bad look for the business. So I would think that the fast food chains, national chains, do a better job than that. That's all I would offer in regard to the dumpsters.
So the one question that came up, you said it was the signage. Do you recall what signage we approved last time? If not, if it was part of the prior approval, those conditions would still be in effect depending on how we vote tonight, to keep the signage in place. But do you remember, Attorney Gary, what signage we put?
So you're referring to the directional signage?
I think the signage that the woman mentioned from Montreal Street, we put signage.
Right,
on
I
that.
don't recall offhand, but whatever it is what, you're right, it was what
It would be
approved
in the
previously.
previous
those conditions.
Unless we voted to change that this evening.
We
Yeah, so
are not,
it'd still be
we are not
effective.
proposing to change
Right.
that at all, no.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So at this time, I'll turn it over to the board members. Actually, I'll start first. I just have a couple of questions. So going over the matters from planning staff. I know you said, talking about planning and management teams, you're okay with maximizing shade trees, you want to put in more trees. I got that.
We are.
So on the last line here, the applicant should consider an alternative to the use of Calorie pear. Calorie pear is considered invasive, it can have an unpleasant odor. Does anybody have any comment on that, or can elaborate on it a little further? Trees,
So, yeah, so we did discuss that, and if that species is unpleasant, we will replace it with something that isn't unpleasant.
okay, gotcha, all right. Because I know you indicated you agreed with putting in some more trees. I know, like, we like trees, whatever, there's a heat island, we keep hearing about that all the time. The fire department, you said you spoke with them, they're better on the sweep path, and you won't act on maybe a conditional approval. So I know we heard from the stormwater, wastewater, and water department, but just to make sure I heard everything correctly. So for the stormwater, they want to see a meeting, utility plan shows above ground overflow from the detention pond to the public right of way. There was an existing drain line to the Tanner and Plain Street that could be directly connected. So you're going to try to connect into
Yeah,
that plan?
two options, either directly across the street to a drain within the
Yep.
private property across the street of the Target Plaza or Meadowbrook Plaza, or down at the intersection of Plain and Tanner Street.
So it would either be to the target or...
Either one, we will do one
Okay.
or the other.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, transportation, we listened to, and, then, on the wastewater, they're talking about, would like to, request that the grease trap O&M be tied into stormwater permit.
And we can do that.
Okay. Site plan notes that the sewer elevation, the calculations will be determined at the later time based on elevations, they just said this needs to be done prior to final approval. So wastewater, you're okay with the conditional approval on wastewater. And for the water department, no plan for fire service listed. Dorm service and fire service lines must be tapped separately at the main. We do not allow dorm to come off of fire. I'm not sure what dorm is, if somebody can educate me on that. This allows us, if needed, the ability to shut lines separately. So what do they mean by the dorm?
Yeah, so that's if the buildings needed to be sprinkled, we would have to tie in separately.
Right,
And
I got
since
that.
they don't, that's really not relevant.
okay. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Yeah,
But for the record, DOM means domestic water.
gotcha, thank you very much. I didn't know if it was Perignon or what it was. Yeah, I did very much like the transportation review. I thought Ms. Altman did a great job, and I was very happy to hear from Mr. Dirk.
Yeah.
that, he's in agreement with everything. So, I mean, that broke it down pretty easy. Actually, I read Mr. Dirk's review first before we made hers, so I knew what to look for when I read hers.
Right.
It made it much easier.
Right.
So, all right, thank you. Those are my only questions. Any other board members?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, so if I could just go back to the swept path analysis here, and I understand you reviewed that this afternoon, but in Attorney Gary, you did point out, I mean, really, it shows the fire engine going over what is really a dead-ended portion of the internal roadway here. What is the, you know, I'm getting older and the print's getting smaller, but what is the curbing that's actually, I mean, is this a berm curbing? Are we using vertical granite? Are we using?
You sort of have to ignore the black that you see on the plan and where the curbs are. There's a red line that indicates where we would revise the driveway behind buildings 2 and 3, and actually even building 1, all along the Montreal side of the project. We are altering that driveway and relocating transformers and dumpsters so that we have one nice clean sweep. And so what you're seeing now with all the extra lines is it's the fire truck maneuvering, and that's where I said we
So-
show the path of the tires as
Okay.
well as the path of the body of the
So
vehicle.
where the dumpsters we're seeing right now, that's going to move, that's
Correct.
not, because I see it going through the dumpster over here at this side.
Correct, yeah, that's, and anything that's in black is what we're
So these are
I
revisions
should
to
say,
this.
anything in red is what we're proposing, but we
Okay.
have to run this by the fire department and get their viewpoint on it.
Okay.
Right, where there was a transformer at the corner, well, on the plan, the upper right-hand corner, that would be the northeast side of the site. That was where the transformer was going to go. We're going to be able to move that transformer closer to the third building and put the dumpster in that location. And that would allow for the fire truck to maneuver through. So we have to get the dumpster out between buildings 2 and 3 in order for the fire trucks to get through the site perimeter.
Okay.
And so what you see in red is what we're proposing, that we're going
Right.
to run by the fire department. We
So
wanted
you-
to do that this afternoon just to say that we know we have a path that will work. We can finesse that with, maybe there's a little bit of a back and forth with the fire department, specifically what they want to see. And certainly then we need to revise our landscape plan, not only to address adding more shade trees, but also to make sure that those shade trees are not in an area where the body of the truck would pass.
So Council, myself personally, I would be looking to continue this, so I got a revised site plan that incorporates all of this. Myself personally, I don't know how my fellow board members feel, but I just want to make that known up front. Has there been any consideration, when I'm looking at when you first pull in off Plain Street, and I know what Starbucks is really, for the workers that they just work constantly. One of the biggest things is the mobile orders, right? So the drive-through isn't necessarily the thing that's, it's just as much the mobile orders. And that's people pulling in, jumping out of their cars. They already ordered it. They just run in. They manhandle everything that's on there and look at the names, and then they grab theirs and off they go. But I'm looking at a lot of the parking that's along Plain Street, and I see there's a crosswalk like further down where there's a little bump out, but I can just see people pulling in and just crossing kind of helter-skelter all over the place over there. Is there any consideration for some pedestrian, basically safety and crossing? And then the crosswalk that's there, is that going to be textured so that it would even be raised or different? I can see that being a very busy spot. I go to the Starbucks up at the Tuscan Village up around there, and it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal.
So we have 2 options. One would require the loss of a parking space. So as you notice, a little island that brings pedestrians in from Plain Street, we've added a sidewalk. You can see, I hope you can see it. Where you see the crosswalk going to the Popeyes, the third building, you see the crosswalk there, and then there's a crosswalk across
All
from
right,
the
so if you're
Popeyes.
parking there, how do you get, so if you're parking when you first pull in, how do you get in an easy way, like on a sidewalk, to get to that crosswalk? I can just see people getting out and just running right across here.
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem with the site is where everyone would park along Plain Street, if they went straight across, you would need a 80-foot wide crosswalk, because people are going to meander across there. What we tried to do was add a crosswalk, assuming that more of the pedestrian travel would be from folks in the area coming into the site that would maybe go from a bus stop or whatever and walk to the site. We can certainly introduce another bump out from the parking, lose one parking space, and add another pedestrian entryway that would go right to the corner of the Starbucks.
I think there's got to be. I think that's going to be an issue. Their mobile orders are huge. I think it's probably larger than the drive-through at this point. And I don't think it's designed to take that into consideration.
The site was designed with the folks from Starbucks and met their requirements for, distance from the order board to the pickup window, the length of the queue, all of that is, this is consistent with, it was a back and forth actually numerous times, because it is a tight site. So there was a lot of discussion with Starbucks to come up with this specific layout. I know I mobile order at Starbucks, but I drive through and pick mine up.
Well, I'm old-fashioned. I go right in and I observe everything going on, and I see everybody at the drive-up, and I see everybody driving like, working like mad inside there, but the mobile orders really drive that, their business at this point, and I just can see that being a concern. I'd like to see some treatment given to that. I just think there's got to be a safer way. All of these cars parking here are just going to, all individuals just crossing all over here. That's what I see happening. Now, there was some, and if I missed it, did you take into consideration the angled parking? I think it was somewhere along here there was talk about, was the angled parking going into the Starbucks? Hold on,
There's angled parking with the Chipotle.
With Chipotle,
Is
okay,
the first building, building number 1.
okay, and that's what,
And a little bit in front of the side of building number 3 as well.
oh, there we go, yeah, okay, all right. And then, because the Starbucks, once again, am I seeing that correctly? When you pull in, if you pull into those parking spaces, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 parking spaces, 1 handicap, but that dead ends there, is that correct? So then you back out. Right, am I building number 2?
Building 2, where you park, there are 2 directionals there, so you can go, in and out.
Right,
There's a drive-through bypass.
But it's like a separate little parking lot with the road, internal road around it, right? So
Right,
you pull in there, you back out, and you pull back out the same way, okay.
right.
Okay, definitely tight. I will definitely agree with, and I believe me, I drive around the city. Unfortunately, a lot of the local businesses, eateries that are owned by local people, and they're not chains, and we like that unique, they don't take care of their landscaping, they don't take care of their trash. It's the truth. Look at some of the little plazas that are in the city they're awful. But you look at the chains, you look at McDonald's, you look at Dunkin' Donuts, whether you like it or not, the grass is pristine, they got people out there picking up the trash, the dumpsters are well enclosed, it's a fact. I certainly agree with our fellow human beings that don't seem to take a lot of consideration to the environment around them, and toss out the trash, and unfortunately, it's regional retail, that's an unfortunate part of, I think, society and how they take little consideration into the people around them, and that's truly unfortunate. But as far as the businesses, what we can control on site with the dumpsters, with the enclosure of the dumpsters, and again, the landscaping, I'm confident based on the businesses you're mentioning here, that the site will be impeccable. I suspect it'll be well maintained.
Right.
But again, for myself, and also, I'm not comfortable with, oh yeah, what we previously approved, yeah, that would stay. We went through this before. This is a revised plan. I want to know what the signage is. I don't remember what the signage was on Montreal Street. I really don't. So if that was, an enter only, so they don't exit on the Montreal, I don't even remember. I really don't. So if we could unearth that for the next.
I believe it's exit only, but I agree with you.
Couldn't we get the
We
minutes
need
from
to
that
figure
meeting?
that out.
Yeah,
Because it doesn't make sense to have cars flowing in from Montreal into the site. The flow just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's a regional retail, you've got an arterial road, you've got the highway right here. Why on earth would we go out of our way to drive traffic down a small little neighborhood street?
Yeah.
That's,
And really, the only building that that would use that, or the only customers, I should say, are the customers going to Starbucks, right? If you're going to Chipotle, you're counterclockwise
Yeah,
around the building. If you're Popeyes, you don't get that far. You come back out to the front towards Plain Street.
yeah.
So it would really be only that middle building, customers to that middle building.
Even that middle building, if you're going around, am I seeing that correctly? You're picking up, heading out back towards Plain Street. Is that where you're picking
Yeah,
up?
that's the intent of the flow.
Right. It would be only if you
If somebody
ran in
wanted to
there.
bail out and
Yeah.
take a right onto Montreal and go around, which,
Right.
doesn't make a lot of sense unless you're in that neighborhood.
There was some comment about, too, it not being able to bail out once you're committed to the last floor. I'm fine with that. I don't imagine that's, I think that's, I like that landscaped area there, so. All right, Mr. Chairman, that's, fine. Again, I just, from my perspective, I'd want to see the revised plan.
Understandable.
So, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Danny, questions, comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I guess a couple of questions, couple of comments. I'm curious, why no sprinklers if you're going to have seating in those buildings?
Simply the size. It's
The size of
not
it?
required.
Okay, just based on the size of the building?
Yeah.
Size of the space? You mentioned that Popeyes, that's Building 3 all the way on the right, they're just going to be drive-through, but the other two are not, right?
That's right. They're interior seating and drive-through facilities.
What are we having for seating in those?
I believe that Chipotle is somewhere around 30 seats. And Lawrence, if you're still on with us, you can jump in. But I think Chipotle is somewhere around 30 seats, and Starbucks is probably
Starbucks-
closer to 50.
Yeah. John, Starbucks would be a total of 55, including patio seating.
Okay.
And Chipotle is 30?
30, yes.
Okay. All right. So with these establishments, what do we anticipate? Jerry, I'm going to ask you. How many people are working there at a time when you run in?
Yeah, I would imagine Starbucks at any given time. will have
8 to 10?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out the math here. Because we're using 6.1.5, but in reality, it's 6.1.4. We've dealt with this at China Star a while back. We have the ability to change the parking based on 6.1.5, but the required amount is actually through 6.1.4, which is one space every 50 square feet. My concern is, Jerry raised it earlier, Vice Chairman Frechette, is that it's going to be like, it feels like it's going to be Dodgems for some reason, either parking, walking. So I have some concerns about that, but I also have concerns about, it feels like there's a lot going on this site. I do think the road out back helps. The landscaping definitely helps. I am curious about whether, if that road goes through, you're actually going to have Popeyes and Starbucks going through that back road, probably. And so my question is, are we allowing people to come in from Montreal, or we are allowing people to go out from Montreal? Because, like we said, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to put a lot of people on Montreal Street. It doesn't make a lot of sense at all. I did hear earlier that from the traffic person, I forget the name, and I apologize, but he mentioned that traffic was so many, like 90 to 190 per hour, or whatever it was, and that it sounded like his project decreased, but from what I could make out from his numbers, it sounded like basically the through traffic at that time is about the same, and then with this facility, we're going to basically double the traffic. That's what it seemed like he was saying. So I'd like to, if he could come to the microphone and discuss that, because I did hear that you said this is a decrease from the last proposal. So I definitely hear that, but it sounds like in the area, realistically, you're doubling the traffic for that area.
Right, the comment was just a comparison of the trip generation for the two proposals.
Two proposals, okay.
Right.
All right, but realistically, I did understand it correctly. There's going to be so much pass-by traffic, the regular traffic, and then from this, you're going to basically have the same amount, except it's going to be going to these 3 facilities.
That's correct, yeah. So about half of the trips are pass-by trips that are going past the site already.
Yep.
So they're not necessarily generated by the site, but they will be using the access driveways as well.
Okay.
So, I mean, again, so we did the study, and so it is a decent amount of trip generation. That's why there's quite a bit of traffic mitigation proposed for the project.
Okay, thank you. My concerns are parking and, as Member Frechette had mentioned, the walking on the sites. If Starbucks has 55 seats, Chipotle has 30 seats, that's 85 seats. We have 8 to 10 people working at each facility. I don't know where they park. So I have questions. That seems like a lot of bodies in a small area, and I'm wondering if we're trying to do too much, is what I'm thinking.
So if I could reply to some of that, Member Tenza. So, in terms of dodgems, I would suggest that, most busy plazas are the same, right? If you go to Stadium Plaza or the Wood Street Plaza, they're busy plazas. Pedestrians have to be careful. Developers have to take into consideration pedestrian safety, and that's what we're trying to do here. In terms of the number of employees, Lawrence, do you have a sense of the number of employees for the different restaurants? I think that Popeyes is 5, if I'm not mistaken.
I can tell you the Popeyes would be 5 or less because there's nobody waiting on customers. It's just, the dine-in customers, so it would just be the drive-through and the people cooking the food. So you probably have around 5 people in the Popeyes. I don't have a sense for the Starbucks or Chipotle employee count.
Okay, and I guess in terms of 6.1.4 and, comparing that to China style, this is very much different. All 3 restaurants have drive-through facilities. As I said, the Chipotle facility is a little bit unique in that it's a pickup window. You order from the app, you go to the window, you pick up your food and you go. You don't stop at an ordering menu, order, go to the window, wait for your food, and then go, which helps decrease the number of cars in the queue that will be going through that restaurant. And again, the other restaurants have drive-through facilities. I would suggest, as I said in my remarks, that the trend is most definitely towards drive-through, DoorDash, and as Member Frechette said, mobile ordering and pick up and go. So, although the restaurants have, 50 and 30 seats, it's unlikely that those seats will be, fully occupied at any given time. And again, in addition to that, Chipotle and Starbucks have opposite peak hours. So I think that all mitigates to what we're requesting here.
I do hear what you're saying. I do think if they're putting 30 seats or 55 seats in, they're big corporations. They know what they're doing. They do it for a reason. They're not just adding seats to add seats. They're looking to fill the seats. Otherwise, they don't make money, and otherwise it doesn't help the city. So I'm with you as far as we want businesses here. It's just a question of, does it make sense to me? That's all.
Yeah, and by the same token, the businesses aren't going to invest the millions of dollars that they're going to invest in long-term leases over time if these sites don't work for them. I mean, they're not going to. It would be a disaster if if parking was an issue at any of these restaurants. My thoughts.
You all set? Okay. Ms. Walker, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Overall, I think this is a good development for the city. It will increase our tax revenue as well as create more jobs. I also love the amount of vegetation that comes with the project. I did have a question in the comments from the traffic engineer. They mention snow removal. Is there a snow removal plan at this stage?
Yes,
Because
so we, you want to address that?
maybe I overlooked it, but I couldn't find
Yeah,
it on the
if you
plans.
look at the site plan, I don't know if I can go back to that. It's, oh, I'm judging, I'm used to my touch screen, there we go. This plan, there's, no, it's the other plan. Do you see these little dashed areas here and here and all along Plain Street? Those would be the snow storage areas for the site. It's a kind of a dotted hatch that's on the plans. So it's all along here and then in these two islands.
Okay.
And obviously, if there was a significant storm, they would have to truck it off.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Anything else? No? Okay. Tal, any questions, comments? No? Jovis, any questions, comments? No?
No, I don't.
The one thing I will say is, with the drive-throughs, you get less people going inside. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we see that, and they say you go into your regular McDonald's now, you go inside, you might see five, six people, and there's enough seating for 40, 50 people. Especially when you have the one on the app that you pull up to, those people aren't getting out and going inside.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I just think more people, I go inside because I think it's quicker than going through a drive-through, and I don't mind getting out of my car. Because, but I mean, the drive-throughs definitely cut down the amount of people who are gonna actually park and go inside with the drive-throughs. I mean, that's what we've experienced from other sites. Like when we had the one on Wood Street, I remember they had the question when they put the CVS in and they wanted to put the drive-through in, and they talked about how many parking spots, and I'm like, I think it's a great idea. You're sick coming from the doctor, you really want to go into CVS, or do you want to go through the drive-through?
Right.
Women with children, and they're going to take them inside just to get a prescription, let's go through the drive-through. So I think most of your people go through the drive-through, aren't going to go through the drive-through, go park, then come in,
Right.
sit down, eat their food. They're going to keep going.
Right.
So I think by the drive-through, they do reduce the number of people who are going to park and go inside. That's the only comment I have on that. But like you say, with the app one, those people are coming inside. But so what's the request? I know, Jerry, you had some concerns about
Yeah, well,
some
Mr.
matters
Chairman,
that you'd like to
well, I think it-
revise or see?
Yeah, I think in light of the fact that, I mean, it was clearly, the site plan's going to change as a
Yes.
result of this. So I really would want to get a revised site plan and take a look at the relocation of the dumpsters, the reconfiguration of the roadway. I want some clarification on the signage we were talking about for the backside of the property, for cars entering or exiting out the backside. And then we talked a little bit about the landscape. I think it's going to change the landscaping a little bit as well. So it really, and then I want to get the fire department's
Final approval?
Yeah, so I think that really are the elements that I really would want to see. I do want to acknowledge the transportation management plan, and it's in a different way, right? Because we deal with that when you're talking about residents. But it's also to be provided to employees, and hopefully it'll provide local jobs for local people as well. But that's something that has to be taken into consideration. I'm more apt to go along and understand the reduced parking when understanding the dynamics. And I think it's great that you're getting a Starbucks on the site, by the way. Don't get me wrong on that. I wish there were even more around locally. And I go to the one up in Nashville by Barnes and Noble, and I can tell you the one up in York, Maine closed. I mean, it was a disaster driving. It was in a plaza, and it was awful, right? It was just, so it is a destination on top of just serving the cars that are
Quality
going through
tenants.
there. And do we know if the Starbucks and the Target is going to stay open?
I don't know.
No. Just curious if it's the same
Lawrence,
franchise.
you know anything about that? There's a Starbucks across the street in the Target store.
Yes. I can't say 100% for sure, but I know from what I've seen in my own experience, the units in Targets stay open even though you have one could be across the street, such as this. They usually do stay open. They do have a lease commitment as well. But I've seen them stay open, just like the food uses that are inside Walmarts. You could have one across the street, like McDonald's is in Walmart, but there's one on the same street. They do tend to stay open and keep both.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the Barnes and Noble up in Nashua has a Starbucks inside of it, and there's a Starbucks in the plaza next to it. So I understand that. So, yeah, okay. And again, I would be looking. I don't know what we have on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, but I would be looking and I guess Council, would you have it? Do you think you could have it ready for the June 2nd meeting?
You could have it ready for the next meeting.
Okay.
And the reason I'm sort of emphatic about that is because we do have a tight timeline with the tenants and getting fit out and open. And this project's 2 years behind schedule.
Understood.
So just so the board knows that we have 3 items and a tree hearing on the 2nd. Staff has no problem with as many projects, but I know the board generally does 3.
What are the items on there?
It's a tree hearing for Hadley Park, like a large development at 534 Chelmsford Street.
That's a revision, though. Is that a revision? Or is
No, that's a new one.
Okay.
You guys did this rezoning for it earlier this year.
Okay.
278 Central Street is just an expansion of the building that used to be Thirsty First.
Oh, yeah.
Downtown. And then 558 Gorham Street has been continued to that date, but we haven't seen any revised plans or anything for
There was
that
one
yet.
we had before the Department Connected to the right.
Yeah.
They came in and asked for an extension.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
Yep, that building that's currently closed.
Yeah.
Next to the plumbing store.
Yeah.
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 Department Connected to the right, yeah. Okay.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I have no problem. I don't want to hold it up, but
I don't wanna-
But I don't want to prove it tonight, I can tell you that.
Yeah, the 2nd is fine with me, because the 16th is busier than the 2nd.
Yeah.
We've discussed that today. Huh? The 16th, we have,
Yeah.
yeah, we have a lot on. Because they were talking about putting another item on the 16th, and I told them, no, put it on until July. So, yeah, I mean, things are going to take a lot of neighborhood concerns. Let's put it that, well, I think we'll have a lot of neighborhood people speaking. Yes, input, I should say. Not really concerns, but questions, I think. So the 2nd, I have no problem with that. On the tree hearings, how many trees we're looking at?
What was that? I'm sorry.
I'm just checking with Peter there for our tree hearings. I'm just curious how many trees this time.
Yeah.
I think, because we've been getting so many, I think Hadley Park's only one, though. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's only
Yeah,
one.
yeah, that's quicker. And so the other thing, Peter, because I know we're talking about the signage on Montreal, if you could just give us the minutes for the last meeting on December 4th, 2023, that way we'll remember what the signage is. I'm sure we must have a condition on it. Okay.
And if not, whatever it is we have, I want clarification on that. It may not be in the minutes if it was in the plan, so I just want to,
I think I provided a copy of the approved decision with my narrative.
okay.
And we'll
right, okay.
confirm all that.
If not, the board can consider signage at the next meeting.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So,
We can always consider at that time, Attorney Gary.
What's that?
We can always consider what type of signage we feel is appropriate on Montreal Street.
Right.
At the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Right.
I mean, if we don't see it there,
You know, we'll have a good answer for you.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and then at least a proposal from you to us to consider,
Yeah.
which is the best way, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
All right,
So-
well, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'd make a motion that we continue it to June 2nd meeting.
Motion's made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Chair votes yes. Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you, we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. So, moving along the agenda, do we have any updates? Many other board members besides Mr. Fischett with the article about the bridge?
It's almost there. It's almost there.
I knew Dan was gonna ask him, looking.
Rumor has it that bridge is being deported.
Right, so, no, that's the only updates that we read in the local paper?
No, other than that, you know, it's really consistent with everything I've been told, so I mean, that's at this point, which is good. The more news that comes out, it's reinforcing everything that I've been told.
I'm gonna, for the next meeting, I'm gonna check.
Oh, we can if no other further notes, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
As is right now.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, none? We are approved, we are adjourned, good night, thank you, everyone.
Street.
So, on